So the youngster Madu delay, Sugu, Sangman, Latering, Sangmanyambo, youngster sick, then Migi Tonga, Kaja, share you by this. Yam Sembore, that's the true double doatilan, the true double lab. Mushi, the true lamna ticket, Sungodoa, Tende zoom down, Tene video telephone the song. Back to the Mushi, the true race.
I see. So again, I want to say that it's really wonderful to see you again, to see your face, and that you can see me, and we can talk. I can talk, and you can hear me. And then when you have questions, I can hear your questions and answer. And I find it's quite magical. It's really a wonder, this technology of internet. And in my world, the Tibetan world, the Himalayan world, everyone is amazed by what's happening since COVID, how people can connect, how we can connect right now, be together. And I see you, and such a joy, such a wonder. I mean, inspired to see you through Zoom.
Tene the Hasam Lebji Mareva, Kale Mambo, Jamne. Then Pena Dala, Dilla Jiktingi Mushilam Nadigere, Sungo Kimbu, Jiktingi Mushilam Nadigere, Sutulam Nadigere, Sungo Adela.
And we can appreciate, because it's not something that's easy to bring this technology and to make this possible. It's a sort of miracle, like a mundane miracle, or the mundane worldly magic of technology. That's what the Kempo, with whom I study these days, that's what he says. He says, yeah, it's the world. So it's not the spiritual miracle, but the world wonders, the wonders of our world.
Tene Dilla Samlotang Huda, this so tipe, Samlotang Yorba. Pena Dilla Shine Gom Japsena Diorsa, Shine Gom Dig result at our Lamna Diorsi consultations.
And it's also this Kempo with whom I study also said it required a lot of knowledge and a lot of reflection and analysis and concentration and one-pointed minds. So many minds have been working one-pointedly, pacifying their minds, settling on solving these sorts of issues or technological problems. And that it's sort of, even though it's worldly, it's sort of a very advanced practice of mind knowledge and concentration. That's what the Kempo says.
Tene Jia Yuna, Tanganzu, Sanje Gopang Kanji ni Tobaya Yomare, Diro Ichigo, Tende Indiana, then the Sanje Gopang Nipper Tobaya Dua until the legend is Ichigo.
So if this is possible for such, somehow from a spiritual perspective, a trivial question, the technology, then, if human beings are able to concentrate their mind and think and perform such miracles as this wonderful technology, then we should not doubt that we have this capacity and that we can use it for enlightenment. Well, why not? The human beings' capacities are really wonderful and amazing. So I take this as an example or an excuse to encourage you to have full confidence in your ability to harness your mental and spiritual capacities for enlightenment, and that you will get there.
Tene the Manzo Kazan Shivanashi, Manzo Sangma, Namba Sanjeki Chinjukreba, the Majabachi Kogadua. Tene Sanjeki Karasundu, the Susamnotam, Dirita, Namba Sanjeki Legama de.
So for us, we are Buddhists, as I said, we developed that yesterday, that what it means, and that we have really to regard, to consider ourselves as followers of this spiritual path shown by the Buddha, and our focus should really be on our spiritual development.
Tene da sanje mangbu sung yona yang su dom jamne resume jena tene yongda la tene sanje kada bu tawa kada ki chaksa shi se tene de sung do tawa kada ki chaksa shi se di sanje ge tangbo khar sung re se di tuje tamje mitakwa re da sung di sanje ge message di tene mitakwa imba de nganzu samlo tangbo tene düje ki chuchi yenne mela mitakwa res dereda chigi la tene chungju düje mitakwa re daldo re sonde manzo danda düje ki chörwa tene chuzeni ringla tene computer na samma ton kechi sigurwa düje incham chuzeni jela daldo yorwa düje tamje mitakwa tene da mitakpa la tene shiya chikpo mare dowa changma samlo tangpo dowa jikten chamboli nu mitakpa chu semchen mitakpa tene soso ki junor longche jekhab mitakpa rangsini ba teso samlo tangne tene mitakpa rakpa tang chawas ni dowa rakpa ta changma hamo yores tene chawa di samlo tangpo re sedi kichi la chuzi karma nangsiro ta ta rangi dusun judu go re rangi subu judu go re sama ta stila tene pena rakpe midakpa di ri sarbu ngoni chubaba nangsire se do kichi la chalo riba nangsi tene judu go re so do o dila samdi de nganzo gi pechanangla namchi chame gomjapse dirido tena nganzo diringde dua sangyi medo o dalu dua lo jema medo samba da di rang chikbu mariba rangi khoro sangma sawa lama tene pama pinja suina tene ge rang sire dua tene mitakwa chawa de samton namchi chame 지즈밀라르바게 남치 참에 곰곰네 공릴라페네 테네 치월을 직범에 바쳐서 소밀라르바 송도와 어디나시레 베나 밀라르바 코랑라 가술도와 사기 하양지도와 두버거야 테네디 니마치 리드네 차도와 테네 밀라르바 뭐데 미탁바데 녜도 예, 자 가성 여바 드링 매 송데다 미탁바 텐데 진된 미탁바 삼로 땅고레 상제기 뒤제 탐제 미탁바 개치쇼 인상 당부 승화를 쓴다. 근데 미탁바데 야고지 하거나 된 동반 얘기 되네요. 또 연구해서라. 근데 뒤제 탐제 미탁바.
So back to this really starting point that we are on spiritual path, and our spiritual path is the path that was shown by the Buddha. Then, therefore, we study, and it's important to always go back to what the Buddha said. And the Buddha taught for decades, for almost 50 years of teachings, and there are many teachings, and we should always have these teachings in mind, but because they are so vast and numerous and diverse as well, we can always go back to the most fundamental teaching, which is something that he gave just before passing away. He gave a reminder with 4 sentences that are sort of universal principles that Buddhists should have in mind. And they are called the 4 seals, like a seal that you apply to authentify the Buddhist teachings. And the first of these 4, if I quote it literally, well, but you will probably find different translations in English and by different translators. It says that all compounded phenomena are impermanent. So it's about impermanence, which is bringing as a first principle that we should always keep in mind, bring how transitory everything is, our life and all phenomena, anything that is that we experience, starting from ourselves and our environment, everything is transitory and doesn't last a single second. It's always changing. And he called it compound. I don't know if that's proper English, but it means that phenomena don't stand as one entity that is independent of everything else. It's always made of different things, and there is a interdependence in anything. Anything is made of coming together of different components and different cause and conditions, and that's what we call the interdependence, or sometimes codependent origination or whatever. But it means nothing is fully isolated. And the moment there is a coming together of of conditions or components, there will be a disaggregation, there will be a falling apart, and nothing can hold together. It's always moving, it's always going. There's a moment of coming together and then going somewhere else. So all phenomena are compound, they're made of different components, and this never lasts. And it will separate. For instance, right now we are having this session on Zoom. We're coming together. This is a very gross example, but this is a direct experience. And we cannot hold this together for long. It will definitely end, and each of us will go and go through their own, own private or public life, whatever life and activities. And this is true of everything, every event, but also every phenomena, everything. In the material world, the physical world, the whatever material, solid things or liquid or gas or whatever, everything is compound and transitory, changing constantly. And this is true as well of sentient beings. Sentient beings also are compound phenomena, and they things coming together, components and codes and conditions that will also end. The coming together will end. So for every and this we know for the gross impermanence. We know that there is a passing of time. We know that we will die. We have this awareness already. So we call that the gross or the coarse impermanence. Impermanence means not permanent, so it's the transitory characteristic that the Buddha stressed when he gave the authentifier seals of his understanding and view and his teaching. Yeah, they're called the four seals of the view, of the right view. So the gross one, we have an idea somewhere that yes, things change and we will die. But the Buddha was urging us to contemplate the subtle impermanence. Subtle means that this is not like one day I will die, and this day is, no, not today, not tomorrow, not this year. That's something very far away from us. The subtle impermanence is that minute by minute, second by second, microsecond by microsecond, everything is disintegrating, everything is passing and passing away, changing, and this disintegration, this coming together, the moment it comes together, it's already gone, because it's a flow. And we are in that state of passing. So second by second, microsecond by microsecond, we are going to die. The death is there. So it's there. And okay, we are here right now, but will we be alive tomorrow? That's a question, and that's a question that deserves to be asked. How many people die today that didn't expect yesterday to be dead today. And today, this year, we are here, September, end of September. We'll be alive next year, next September. We don't know. So because it's changing second by second, minute by minute, day by day, but it's never standing and holding together, never. And there is a teaching that's quite fascinating by the great Tibetan yogi and saint and hermit, Milarepa. So Milarepa, I guess you know, so if you don't, you ask questions at the end. He had a very special life story, and he didn't start spiritual at all. He was a criminal, and eventually he moved to the mountain. He found his guru, followed the teachings, and dedicated his life to practice in isolation in the caves, in the mountain. And he said that it was by contemplating the fact that he would die, that there was impermanence, that his good condition would not last, and also because he had committed many crimes. One day he realized, and when I die, what will happen to me with all what I've done? So he said, thinking of death and realizing that death may strike at any moment, it's because I thought of that I turned completely to spiritual development and rich enlightenment. It is the thoughts of death and the death that can strike at any moment. So he really explained that this contemplation of impermanence and realizing that we are going to die, we are going to lose everything, and that can be at any moment, and it's happening every second of our life. We're getting closer to that. He said this is what leads to enlightenment. So really stressing the importance and contemplating this, which is the first main teaching of the Buddha when he brought that back to what's the proper view of our life should be. And there is also, so this was Milarepa at the beginning of his spiritual path, when suddenly he realized that he should not waste a second. And there was another moment that he that has been transmitted for now it's 900 years, almost 1,000 years story of his life. He was living in a cave in the high Himalayas, very isolated, and he didn't go down to the village to eat. So, and there was a time when he would not even go for begging. So he was just eating whatever was around, some nettles, and he had a pot for cooking the nettles, and a clay pot. And one day, because he was extreme and in his practice, not eating enough and really dedicating all his energy to enlightenment, which worked very well actually. But it was a bit too harsh on himself, too tough. And so one day he went to look for nettles, and he was with his pot, a clay pot, and he was not walking very steadily because he was weak, and the pot fell, and there was rock all around, and the pot broke, and that was his only possession. And that was also, that struck him as in his realization. Yesterday I had a pot, today I have nothing. And how he realized, I mean, it struck him as a teaching of impermanence, how you cannot rely on anything and you never know what will happen. The next moment, the situation is completely different. One moment it's one way, and the next moment it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what the Buddha taught, that all phenomena are impermanent, and this is the view we should have, especially on the subtle impermanence, the second by second, that everything is changing. And as we contemplate this change of phenomena, then we can understand that phenomena don't really exist as they appear to exist. And this can lead us and bring us closer very close to understanding what we call technically shunyata, the emptiness, the great emptiness of phenomena.
Tene da mitapa ki chabla kar hako gore sedi lejum retirwa. Tene da nganzo shid tamba me shiba tabu, chu kamba tabu, tene marindawa. Subudi shine semdegi yangjar kiawaji 장주 마저 봐도 기와지 랭고도 기와 감정이네 지 랭고로 어디 그래다 욕자 사실 되르바 되네 양기와는 양시 양기와는 디제디 되네 미탁고 잡라 레줌데 해야지 미탁고 삼로 땅디 되네 레줌데라 이시지야디 펜도고요래 되네 딕바 파야라 펜도고요래 기와두벨라 펜도고요래 되네 촉셰바 되네 가리는 다 되기도 되가 좀 되기도 없어야지 되네 다 되네 쳐라 굴마 연구하래 레로기 굴마 연구 빼다 미탁발라 연전 침버도 깔리 미탁보 코멘트 펜도 치슈레노 언절라 님보 치슈레노 가다
Along with the thinking and contemplating the fact that how precious every second is, because the next second will be different and bring us closer to a very important change, and especially death. Well, behind that contemplation, there should be, the Buddha invites us to also contemplate the law of karma, the activities, whatever activities, body, mind, or speech activities, everything leads to a result according to the cause. So this is what we call the law of karma. Karma means activity. And this means that there is a continuation of causality that never ends. Everything leads to something. Every activity, every happening leads to another one, another experience. And it's not that we die, and when we die, all is over. It's finished, done, completed. It's not like, water, I don't know, water in a container, and then through evaporation at some point, no more water, or a flame, fire, and then it's blown off, and then there's no more fire. It's gone. It's finished. That's the end of it. It's not like that. There's no end of it. There is a continuum. There is a continuity that follows this chain of cause and effect. The activities, everything gives the result, and our stream of consciousness, the continuum of our consciousness, never ends as long as there is karma, as there is activity. So it's along with contemplating impermanence and the fact that we're going to die, we can die any minute, there is a great meaning in performing virtuous activities of body, speech, and mind, because there will be the experience according to that in the future at some point, sometime. And also great stress on purifying one's negativity, whatever negative tendency or negative activities, stopping them, avoiding them, and purifying the tendencies and so on, and the burden of bad karma that we carry without knowing what is in store or what we have committed in previous life. And also contemplating impermanence not only helps us sort of behave and be introspective and check our mental and all our activities, but also it helps us being content with what we have and appreciate what we have and not run after more, which is our tendency to always want more, some more stimulation, more excitement, more wealth, more possession. No, we just be happy with what we have, that's enough. And because everything is impermanent and we may die, and the key is our virtue. Also, contemplating impermanence is very profound in terms of supporting our practice, because we have the tendency of being somehow lazy with the spiritual practice, of never considering it the most important, and also a lot of procrastinations and all different kinds of laziness. They all come under the label of laziness, and thinking of death and impermanence, that nothing lasts, we don't last, our entourage, our beloved ones, our possession, nothing is there forever. So we should focus on the most important thing. And therefore it's also a counter agent against our laziness.
Tene da Amitabha ki nyamlen ki miyul kulung ngoma de kare sedi korwa la yangdu kemawa, korwa la kemawa deri miyu ngoma de Amitabha kumyat miyu ngoma deri.
And also so to sum it up, the key in contemplating impermanence is realizing that we are in samsara, going around and around and around, and that we're bound to be always there, going into this circle, in that movement. This is the movement we are in. We are always changing, but in this circling movement, going around and around, and that considering getting out of there, getting liberating oneself from that.
Tene da nipa di sanje kari sungone sene sakche tamche ndungalwa sede sakche sena da kunzub giderwa soso supo changma khantar sakche ki luyirwa changma amde kiya di sakche ki luyis. Tene sakche ki luychi len chale mela tene dungal mato yo mare se korwe nimik rida korwa dunga ki rangshi re se di sanje ki sungwa rida korwa la ke chane mela dungal mato zaga ne yo mare da se ne tene korwa dungal ji samgo kudu wa de re da nipa di sanje ki mesas nipa di de.
That was the first key in this fourfold seal of the Buddha's teaching. The second one that he taught after saying that compound phenomena are impermanent is that all impure phenomena are suffering. And suffering, that is dukkha in Sanskrit. And here, impure refers to the phenomena we experience as samsaric, ignorant beings. And it refers to our existence, the phenomena of our existence, our body. Our body is considered as impure body. And so our body and our experience and existence and all the field of our experience, all phenomena are impure, and being impure, they are suffering. And this is what he has said, and this is also very important teaching, that our experience, if we check deeply, is only suffering, only frustration and insatisfaction.
Tene sumba di chö tamche tongshin dakme ba sedi tene chö tamche ne rangshin madhupa re da nyingbo me ba re sungda tongba nyi sungwa ra sanje chö tamche da ten ching drejung ten chigi la tenne kecho re ma to rangshin ki tene chik yo ma re sta de sungwa ra.
The third one, the third seal in the fourfold teaching on the view is that all phenomena are empty and devoid of self. So selfless, devoid of self-entity. This is because phenomena, as we just said, they are made of the coming together of different causes and conditions, components, and so they don't exist inherently by themselves. They exist in interdependence, in dependence on cause and conditions and elements and components and ingredients and so on. And we cannot find an essential entity anywhere in any phenomenon that would be its essence in the worldly approach to phenomena. They don't exist by themselves. This is what we call emptiness. There's nothing that can be pointed to or seen or perceived or experienced that exists by itself. It's devoid of a self, of an inherent self. So they don't exist by themselves. This is what we call inherently empty of a self. And this is also what we call interdependence. They only exist through interdependence, which means, we exist only, everything we experience is only interdependent and originating through interdependence. So it's called empty of a self. So all phenomena are emptiness.
다디 게침버리도 동반이기 된데 마도나 코로리 타레 탑 메바리 송고도 데인데 먼저 삼로도 게침버리도 동반이기 된 마임바 소남기 속하제 사나양 미당 할라키야 잠마도 영어 말레스 테네 코로리 타라라 동반이기 된도 그래 세대다 년제 자주 맞아서 코로리 타리요르바 동반이 된 동네래 송고도 대인전다 되니 먼저 계자망 시고도 동반이 있고들 양도 시고도 하다고 말아 이내 갈래 다 배쳐 되는라 뒤지 탐셔도 최탐지 동신 당매 봐 송디 배쳐나라 최남 랑신 매봐 용수 시줄 봐 데르도 최탐지 지기지라 때니 중주직 마도 랑신기 마이바 인장 디된다디 시에나 데네 시럽제 버르도 심비 촉 시럽제 버르도 심비기 된데 데레 시남 랑신 메바 용수 시에나 데 시럽제 버르도 심바레 세디 다 추탐제 지기지라 때니 중주지 마도 니어마르세거라 베나 코로와 땡징대중 코로와 세도 마리과 뒤지남 시진 땡대중이 지기지기 때나 중 되네 양 달바양 되네 지기지기 때나 중네 니가 땡징대중 땡들라 때네 정말은 마도 랑신기 되네 니어마레스 되네다 산제기 지기지라 때네 중주지 이나 참제 되네 랑신 말로 동반이래 디스unguyarwa pichana chönam rangshin mebara yongsu shechirwa dene shera par chinchok cheba yin sungduwa ta nganzoge namji takpar dangme tokbe sherab sayadila tongba nyeredwa dakme tokbe sherab dak dila gangsagi dak chogi dak se nyiyonggarwa ta di dangbo chogi dak di khandiji re sena chilokla sungui yul sekido ata sungui yul pena dorje tabo chilok di sungui yul redwa di chi redwa tene nang manzoge nang zimbe sem ni di nyambo yong di tene dorje sene labgidowa tene dorje khorang chikbo ina mindowa dorje sane tene sem chikbo ina mindowa 테네다 치기 율의 숭 치기 숭의 율당 낭zembe sem니 냠부 데라 최세도 땡징데 중의 최 테네 데코 랑신이 말이도 랑신 돌지 치고기 돌지 말이도 디인다 다 데라 최기 닥세 데르도 최기 닥세 데네 닥디 랑신 만두바 삼로 망보 tāne tēne chūki tākte rāngshīn mātūpa tāñipa kāngsāki tāk sēdi dāla dāgir zimbā kāngsāki tāk sēdi ngēki phūmbū sūpū dīla ngāyin samne tēne dī zimbā dīla kāngsāki tāk kāngsāki tāk dīyāng chīki chīla tēne chūngchūrwa sā, chū, mē, lūng, namgāla tēne sōsōki sūpū dī 속지 풍부, 철의 풍부, 두지지 풍부, 남시지 풍부돼서 중화를 마도 네 딱 말해봐. 되네 대양 안쪽에다네 투바해봐. 되네 대양 랑신 마주바다. 강사기 다동 추기다니 되네 랑신 마주바스. 되네 배나 최탐지 랑신지 동반이레스 동바레 산지 nguma dila chewa yomare, kakpa yomare, neba yomare. Tene chu di chewa meba, kakpa meba, neba meba, shimi tsadaldu shena, tene di sherabje parudu shimbeki tuento stela segere. Sedida tene tongbani labdi chilugi chu tamje rangshin madrupa, dene 가사기 다 되랑 추기 다다 가사기 다니 랑신 마두바기 삼로당네 냠nen제네 텔라 팜네 테네 랑신 마두바지 삼로당고도 테네 메바레베세나 디 마레도다 요아레베세나 디 마레도와 요바양 마레 메바양 마레 세디다 테나 안저기 삼로당고지도와 테가 남지 곰잡디 Dremba, Mayingba, said the Dugidoa. Dremba, the Mayingba, Shishin, said the Yamlin Jayakabla, Dilla Dugidoa. Lojung Jera, then a Gansagita, a Mango Jayarva, and to Yamlin Kabla, Dremba Sung. Tennis and Mayingbache, Tella Shishin Gicharache, the Diridwa, Namjun, the Gomjab, the Taganchapurva. Dirita Kandar, Tennis Sanjigi, Chutamche. 두지템비 sakjetam chu tamjene tongshing dakmebare sundi di dendi manzo samlo tangoda di samdo matana khoroli tharthu mido terenda sumbade
So this is a very important, this emptiness, shunyata in Sanskrit, which is something that is always mentioned in our teachings, and whenever we think of Buddhism and the specific view of Buddhism, we usually think of that one, the emptiness. So why is it so important, and why does it always come in the teachings and any teaching of the Buddha? Whatever category of the different vehicles, Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, there's always emptiness, because there is no way to liberate ourselves from this movement of going round and round and round, birth and death and death and birth and death and suffering, which is the circle, samsara, going around. In Sanskrit we say samsara. So, and through the engine of the cause and effect, the causality, the chain, that cause are followed by effect, which are cause of another effect, and all this is our activity, physical, verbal, mental, and there is no way to get free from that chain without realizing that the phenomena we experience, starting from ourselves, but also all phenomena, actually don't exist by themselves. And so this emptiness is a key central teaching. And even in the Hinayanas, the Arhat, that is the realized beings in the lower vehicle of Buddhism, they are free from samsara, and they have realized the emptiness of phenomena. And this emptiness of phenomena is what we just said, is we can get to intellectually understand it. Maybe at first, if you have never heard that, intellectually it's difficult to grasp, but that's not that difficult to grasp. What is difficult is to realize directly in our experience of life, and all experience, that is very challenging and difficult, or not, but it's important to understand what we just said, that because phenomena are compound, because they don't stand by themselves, relying on themselves inherently, which means just by themselves, but they are the coming together of different components, different causes, different conditions that make them exist, and that this is a flow, the flow of interdependence, or technically some people translate that as dependent origination. So the origin of anything is through codependence, the coming together, depending on the coming together of different causes and conditions. Because of that, they don't stand by themselves. And they don't stand by themselves because they don't exist by themselves. So this is what the Buddha summed up when he said all phenomena are empty and devoid of a self. And so this, what we call samsara in Sanskrit, going round and round in a endless circle of existence, which is made of birth and death, endlessly, again and again and again. This is there is a chain also of our activities, but there is also a teaching. We are not going into the details, which are called the 12 links of interdependence, starting from our ignorance, not understanding the reality of phenomena and giving them an actual existence as if they exist by themselves. This leads to all sorts of grasping and activities, and they are like that, a chain consequence leading to other, and this keeps us to take rebirth and be born again and again and again, and be born and then grasp due to not understanding. So there are 12 links. It's like a chain with the links, 12 of them, if we go through the details, but which we are not going to do now. And here the teaching is super nice, using a commentary. It says that if we understand that phenomena exist by relying on other things, that anything exists depending on other causes and conditions, that they don't by their inherent nature, by nature they don't exist by themselves, this is the prajna paramita. This is the great wisdom. The great wisdom, prajna, in Sanskrit is called prajna. This special, very spiritual wisdom is the wisdom that realizes the fact that phenomena have no self by themselves, inherent self. That is what we call wisdom. And sometimes we call it the wisdom which realizes the absence or the non-existence of a self. And so this is what liberates us from samsara, is this wisdom that understands. And here, understand is realize, it's direct realization of the emptiness, the fact that they don't, and nothing exists by itself. And so we call it also sometimes the absence of self, or the selfless. Selfless not in the sense of not being selfish, but in the sense of inherently I myself and things by themselves. So Dupina was holding an object, a vajra, which I don't have right now with me. And there are two kinds of emptiness and selflessness, the fact that there is no self. In the teachings of the Buddha, for some reason, they make the distinction, or we make the distinction between the self of the I, of myself, of we individuals, the people, the practitioners, and the self of external object. So there is whatever is external to our sense of a self as an individual is called phenomena. So we talk of the selflessness of phenomena and the selflessness of the individual. And this also can be understood as the external world and the inner world. External world is made in this terminology of objects. They are the objects which our consciousness apprehends, perceives, and identifies any phenomena. And then there is the self, which is the consciousness that perceives the object. So this is called the individual. So we can call it individual and phenomena, or subject and object, or external and inner. Inner emptiness and outer emptiness, and self-individual and phenomena. And if we take any object, this object doesn't exist by itself. So this is a phenomena, this is external to myself, and it doesn't exist by itself because it's required many causes and conditions to exist and to be there, and therefore it doesn't exist by itself. But also, if let's say it's a Vajra, this Vajra is not a Vajra by itself. My consciousness grasps it, takes it as a Vajra. The Vajra itself doesn't claim to be a Vajra. It's my consciousness. But if there is no Vajra, my consciousness cannot, if there is no external object, my consciousness cannot grasp the Vajra either. So the Vajra to exist is the coming together of an external object and a consciousness that identifies it. Without my consciousness, there's no Vajra. Without Vajra, there is no, without object, there is no Vajra. Any phenomena we identify, whatever it is the coming together of two things. So therefore, not two things which are the object and the subject, the consciousness and the phenomena, and the coming together of an object that is perceived and a consciousness that perceives and labels and says there is a phenomenon such and such, like there is a Vajra. Then with the object that is perceived and the consciousness that perceives it and labels it, then we have a phenomenon. So it does not exist by itself. It's the coming together of object and subject, of a mind and an external phenomena. And therefore, it's a interdependent coming together of two co-dependent origination. The origin of the Vajra is the coming together of the consciousness and the object which is perceived. So this is what is called the great teaching of interdependence or co-dependent origination. And you may find even more complicated expressions to refer to this principle that any phenomena is the coming together of cause and conditions or of a mind that perceives it and the object that is perceived, or inner world and outer world. So this is speaking about phenomena. Phenomena only exist because of the coming together of a consciousness and something that is perceived, or through cause and conditions. So they don't exist by themselves, external phenomena. And it's the same with the mind. The mind is the one that perceives, and if there's nothing to perceive, it doesn't perceive. So there is no mind, and this is what we identify to ourselves. And generally we say myself, this is me. And this me, also, if we take the globality of what we identify as ourselves, myself, actually I'm the coming together of the different components, the different elements, especially in the Tibetan and ancient Indic tradition, the different elements, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, coming together, making my existence, physical and mental, and verbal as well. Also in the Buddhist sort of psychology, sometimes we call it psychology, but it has nothing to do with what we call psychology in the West. We talk of the 5 aggregates. So there is the body, physical body, and then there are the perception, the sensations and the perceptions, and then the consciousness and the concepts and the awareness, all this consciousness. So this coming together of the body, sensation, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness is what makes me different from others. And we identify ourselves. In Buddhism, it's understood like that. A self of an individual is made of these 5 aggregates. But again, if we consider that this is me, actually it's not. This is a delusion, because it's not standing on its own. I don't exist by myself. I'm not one entity. I'm a compound phenomena, and the coming together and cause and condition and very impermanent, always changing. So thinking that we exist as individuals is a complete delusion. It's a mistake, misconception. So there are these two misconceptions about phenomena, external phenomena as existing by themselves, being there, and us, ourselves, existing. And these two don't exist inherently. And also another way of describing this emptiness is that a phenomena cannot, and the self, or the individual self, or the phenomenal self, cannot be pointed as existing in time, like it has a birth, it comes, and then it's there, and then it ends. It's not like that. There is no birth, no abiding, and no cessation to phenomena. It's always always groundless, always baseless, never standing on something that allows it for existing by itself. So this is an understanding the emptiness or the selflessness of phenomena and individuals, and which we call the wisdom which realizes emptiness, as a contemplation, as the most fundamental contemplation, which should be the background of our spiritual practice. It should always be there, whatever we do, and especially when we think and we try to do something spiritual, like a formal practice, it should be with this understanding and this contemplation. And this contemplation is because this contemplation is what liberates from samsara. So if we want to practice something to be liberated from samsara, we need this wisdom. Practice, whatever method, should come with this wisdom, the contemplation of the selflessness of oneself as an individual and the phenomena, whatever they are, the external phenomena. And let's breathe a short while. Also, we could say, okay, then there is nothing. Okay, it's not there. It's not like that. It's not denying that nothing is there. But it's not that, okay, it's there then. It's not there either. We cannot say it exists fully or it doesn't exist, absolutely doesn't exist. It's neither non-existent nor existent. And with this realization, or at least this intellectual understanding, we can practice. And we keep this in mind. This is what we call in the practice, we say don't be distracted, and also bring awareness, mindfulness. Mindful of what? Mindful of that. Mindful of the fact that it's not existing as it appears to be existing. It's not like that. It's neither existing nor non-existing. It doesn't exist by itself. It's empty. And with this mindfulness, this non-distraction, then our path is the proper path. And that's why we always say, please practice with mindfulness. Please practice with attention. Pay attention. Bring your mind and check the activity of the mind, and don't be distracted. The focus is this understanding. And so this is the third of the four seals of the Buddha, authentifying his teaching. The seal that says all phenomena are empty and devoid of self.
Tene di jagona yakundo 다 대 동반이 다 도르도네 밀라 동반이 세요. 동반이 간디지레스나 슈 탐제 랑신 마주보기 된다데 하고 데르바 동반이 세데. 테네 동반이 디 된데 마도나 코랄 타르기 민도와 데르바. 테네 인지민지 동반이 된데 삼나땅 코랄 타르기 민도와. 테네 동반이 가르지 인지민지 고거레스디 동반이 된데 냠랜데 마제 나 랑주기 녀몽바 대자시나티 몽아제 차도디 짜니네 메바디 동반이가 마도 소투가 말해 세도와 셴 같이네 융무루 땅에 되네 마도 짜니네 녀몽바 탐제 메바서야디 님보디 동반이래도 디엔자 동반이 개치 뭐래 되네다 녀몽바 탐제 메바로디 되네 코럴 타르기도와 자점메고 본도기도와 이내 상제야 말이야. 다 상제고나 동반이 강라 탑 닝지 신부 자르고요래. 딜랍디 셔럽 동반이 탑 닝지 신부 니 개념랜디 예나 테네 코랄레 타네 장축 상제고 본토네 셈제만 보러로 보지도 된대지래도 돔 잡는 데래도.
So I hope I was not speaking too fast because this is so important, but there was much that was said. So bringing it back to the key elements of this teaching is that nothing exists by itself. There is no inherent existence in anything. This is what we call emptiness. There is no inherent self in anything we experience, including ourselves as a self. And without this understanding and realization, it is not possible to be free from going around and around. It's not possible. We cannot be liberated from samsara. To be liberated from samsara, we need to develop this realization and the direct realization. And because what creates our endless activity is our ignorance, solidifying phenomena and experience, and then acting upon the experience. And the experience, when there is a self and object, is always more tinged with stupidity, attraction or aversion. We may call that desire and hatred, but attraction, aversion, and then all the other afflictions of our mind, the pride and the jealousy, it's always there. And we can work to diminish this, but the way to eradicate from the root or any of these poisons is by realizing the non-existence of phenomena, the non-existence of the self. This is the only way to really completely eradicate them from the root. And this is why the realization of emptiness, of selflessness, is required for liberation. Otherwise, we cannot help but going around and around through the chain of cause and effect in the karma, the activities which are cause and effect. So this is very important. But is that enough? Well, not for full enlightenment, not at all. This is not enough. We need also to be present with compassion, to have compassion. The compassion is the means, is the activity, is the method. And we have to bring together the method and the wisdom. So practice compassion along with the understanding of the selflessness of phenomena. This is how it works. And this is what brings enlightenment.
나서 나은서 냠래란 저거도 되게서 대망라인 Tadi kasang tojaba. Nyamlela dodi guru moche train so atamne chikdin so de sarsum dendi de lagwa temo jar ko to stina lagwa temo jaras.
Okay, that's a lot of talk to start the day. Let's with this general teaching now, let's go back to the specific teaching of this retreat, which is the practice of infinite light, the practice of Amitabha. So you take your text if you don't have it, because I see new people have joined us today. Well, I don't know, you can right now be in touch with the organizer if that's not done and get the text and download it. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is you take your text, you open it at the page 2a where the actual sadhana, the practice of infinite light starts. So for us, the recitation starts page 2a, and you can take a pencil or even a pen. Okay. No, not yet the sadhana itself, the introduction pages. So it starts page A. And you can take a pencil and make some annotations to help you know what to do, just short reminders. And here the reminder, and that also answers one question that was asked yesterday, is for that one you fold hands for praying, supplicating Padmasambhava. So you can make a mark, whatever, your own code or whatever, folded hands for this supplication. Let's do it together.
Cordo cando mambe cor jesu dadu chinje love chere jesus guru be mai zende ho uje yuje no jan zam be mai kesar dombo ya zen joge ngodo nye be mai june jesu cordo cando mambe cor jesu dadu Chinje love chere sheso guru be sende uje yuje no jan be ma ge saran dombo la ya zen choge ngado be ma june sheso da kordo kande mambe chinje jeso da do chinje love chere sheso guru be ma sende tene nyamnen degi jibi sondip dende lagwa tema jar ko dos emaho
Oh, sorry. Next page is also a supplication. It's called the prayer of the Pure Land. And since it's a supplication, again, we fold our hands and we supplicate from the heart.
Emao nezonjave chezo baime lolai neje ezeze chereze zamle dende chayje bema ajun sanga doye dorje de jama anda sabsan doye nyembe gamba Pao Jambo Orida Tomela Megedonjo Drabe Sawade Temejede Mejo Jansejo Reninaja Samo Darajende Korde nyalo zomba chenboye kada teje rigbe ajazazen flundo de gara naje darajene samevele dobarajenje elo ganjendebe wangcho mena sangay nyenjen zonzen ngamzonde doden chongchir sam nenjarba shaja shiri shala sawande omen cheche yinje podane desam sanje kunje ngo Ransim chukku nguzun dunze me tsarala meja sawande tene tojabudu atilbu indamaru sava.
Next, we do the seven branch prayer with playing of the and holding the vajra as well.
Damaru. Tojabna tribu damaru.
And also, when you put the annotation in your text, you can add the damaru. We play the small damaru here.
Page 2a tene da chapter hai dangbo chapter khasan da shu sarsan dangbo tene dirin dangbo thongma nyamle de go chu ti chapter ne go chu ga dil la pa thema jar ko to chapter sarsum.
And then next we enter the actual sadhana. So it starts with the refuge, taking refuge. We have discussed that and explained that quite at length yesterday. So now we're just going to recite. This has to be done with folded hands, and we recite it 3 times. So if you need to put some annotation, please go ahead.
Bardo jazoje koi joy somye sa samay janjada na vaya taye jarvay se jala da soy kaja do vaya malugun Dezoy jaja barado jazoje injikela lodo.
In English, we recite this refuge. Shri, in Amitabha, who truly is the 3 jewels, the 3 roots, and an ocean of masters, surrounded by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, I, and as many beings as space can hold, all without exception, take refuge from today until enlightenment.
Tene lapa themo jargu mindu danda.
Then without folding hands anymore.
Tene simjira da chapter simjira da de.
Now we go for the development, generation and development of the bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. Three times. Once in English language, page 2A, third line. 3. The 6 classes of beings of samsara, my very kind fathers and mothers, feeling an unbearable compassion, are resolved to liberate them definitely from samsara's ocean of suffering, so that they obtain unsurpassable awakening. Then the 7 branch prayer. English. In English. Shri, to Amitabha, the Buddhas, their offspring, and the double Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, I prostrate, make offerings, and confess negative acts. I rejoice in virtues. I request you to turn the wheel of Dharma and not to pass into Nirvana and to remain constantly in this world. I dedicate all the roots of virtue to enlightenment. Then there is the offering of the Toma for the demons we mentioned yesterday. So this is, as I said, is really optional and is appropriate for great gatherings when we do big Gana Chakra with many people and many offerings. Then it's proper to do it at that time, but otherwise no, it's not necessary. English. Daru yang Daru. So for that one, when we do it in a big gathering, we play at the end. We play the bell and we hold the Vajra, and at the end we also play the Damaru. So let's read it once in English. What's that? Page 3A, first line. Shri, I am the great, powerful Heruka. Assembly of demons, negative beings, harmful spirits, take this Dharma which pleases the senses and go to the other side of the ocean.
Tene sungwe kholo sungur gomba sigoro. Gegla to matre sadida tene sangma jene security de soyatas.
And the next, as it says in Idyllic, the circle of protection is a sort of fence we established to protect this space which we have cleared from negative energies and whatever hindrance and obstacles. Now we seal this with a circle of protection. So let's do it once in Tibetan. So again, here you can mark that we play the bell and the damaru. So today we don't hold the damaru, but it's meant to be there. And in English, it said, Sri, in the three worlds of Pema Heruka, as a result of the play of great wisdom, not even the names demon or harmful spirit exist. Samsara and Nirvana, wisdom's great expense.
Tene da jinbe breda, tene ngarang so nyamlen jingen chola, sanje da janje semba tamje gi lunga isemla jinji labela jinbe segora tangbo.
The next step is called the shower of blessing, and we bring down blessings on ourselves and surrounding the place where we are and the other practitioners. And we bring it down from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We request that it pours down from sent by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So here again, bell and damaru.
Tene da, tene ramyam kham se manso chuze diso. Ngusu shambi chuze la jinji lap, tene yang so ki, tene tingin zingi simgi so ne chuze tamze, ta sanje yoba mela choba pyu chujo dadi jia tere chuze jinabza.
So the Pina Chimbe thing on Inchikila Lona. So let's read the shower of blessing once and then talk about the next step. So for the shower of blessing, Shri, from the peerless palace of great bliss, Protector Amitabha, protectors, assemblies of Sugatas and victorious Bodhisattvas, shower me with your grace and bestow the initiation upon me. Om Amitabha Beshaya. And then there is the blessing of the offerings, the offering substances, which means the offering. That we're going, at a later stage of the ritual, we're going to present and offer to Amitabha, infinite light, and all the enlightened ones. But here we are sort of preparing and consecrating and setting the scene of the offering. So we bless or consecrate the offering substances and objects.
Ramyam Ram Mwenje Nando Tombarja Tonye Ile Regbe Ayazara Chena Sawai Chebe Chezamenam Zendu Jarasara Dila Dilbu Chipo no Damaru Sirva.
For that, at the end, we play the bell, and we don't play the dhamma, just the bell. So what we said, we say in English, Ram Yam Kam. Attachment to reality and concepts are purified by emptiness. From the ultimate sphere of emptiness and the dynamism of awareness come clouds of exterior, interior, and secret offering. You make it space treasure. Savapuja Anallahu.
Da ngomadille gyarwa, da yamnen ngomadilla, dene kandes chegores, chirim dag dunyik, chirim gomgodo, tangbo dakche rani chenesik chashiba, da pechana yevana sing, samlota di chirim tangbo dakche chirimida.
Now we reach the main body of the practice, which is generating the deities, the enlightened presence. So we are going to do it in two stages or two phases of this generation. Oneself, it says yourself, but it means oneself, and the presence of enlightenment before oneself. So we call it oneself and in front, or before, which means in front of oneself.
Dikabla dorjidan ribu dende kirdego.
For this part, we hold the vajra and the bell. So the vajra in the right hand and the bell in the left.
She gorde nyamye yene jembaina magaranda nyinje kola jap sunjo yerme bema davede reye yonjora danye gejege toje jemba baba Chaje chaje longje anzo kuje chaje damo talmo jarvena eje norbo kude kunjo nama ome chanye shete bekarade nalai raje amado jate Di bardu dakche ki chermi yapo, dine rani chene zingwe sumdo yin sam. Tene da, di tsardi sarvi dunyul namke khalondu, se di tene mayimba jene rangi dunga namkar, tene namke khalondu, rangi tsawe lama, ngu di rangi tsawe lama, jawondupa, suyina da tsawe lama, namba sanjayo pa me chene. Tene yapo sertab. Tene sanje yobo megi choshi samje ten wogla tene sanje da janju samba tam che kaane shugu sam tarangi dunga nangata ti dunje sel tabara dunje. Te pechananga pe manta ma bumdang ten bari doa ti kaala tene sanje yobo mi shu doa.
So, want to logo it?
Wei logo.
So let's read in English what we just recited and chanted, page 4, third line at the end. 3. The equality of samsara and nirvana, devoid of concepts since beginningless time, unobstructed natural radiance, all-pervading compassion, undifferentiated great union. On a lotus and moon cushion, the letter Shri immediately transforms into myself, the great compassionate one, noble generosity. His body is glowing white like a resplendent conch shell. He has one face, 4 arms, and is clothed with the attributes of the Sambhogakaya. In his first 2 joined hands, he holds a wish-fulfilling jewel which bestows all needs and desires. The other 2 hold a crystal mala and a white lotus. His appearance is without substance, like a rainbow. And here you can put a little mark, because this is the first section when we visualize ourselves as Avalokiteshvara, great compassion. And we have to be convinced we are great compassion. So it's called the self-generation. And from there onward, it's the front generation, in front of oneself. So as it says, we will read that later, but the space visualized before us. So now we are going to focus on this. So we keep in mind that we are Avalokiteshvara. When we say in English, visualize is not just visualize, but bring to one's mind the presence, this manifestation in all aspects. And now bring to mind in front of oneself the Guru. So the Guru for us, we have a root Guru, whoever he or she is. Most of us is the Nawang Jinpa. So this is what we bring to our mind and visualize in front of oneself, but in the form of Buddha, Amitabha, infinite light. So the essence is the Guru, and the form is the Buddha, Amitabha. When we reach this point in the text and the ritual, the generation, we play the bell and the damaru. So let's read this generation in front of oneself. So back to page 5, first line, second verse. Page 5, first line, second verse. The realm of the space visualized before you is filled with clouds of various offerings permeating space. In the middle is a white lotus with 100,000 open petals. On it is a full moon disk upon which resides the root Guru, one with the protector Amitabha. Luminous red with a ruby-colored aura, one face, 2 arms, and 2 legs in the Vajra posture. His body is beautifully clothed with the 3 robes of the Dharma. His 2 hands placed on over the other hold a lapis lazuli bowl. He has a crown protuberance, and on the sole of each foot a Dharma wheel. He is ornamented with the 32 excellent major signs and the 80 minor marks. Above and below him, in all the cardinal and intermediate directions, visualize Buddha, Bodhisattvas, noble Sangha, Gurus, Yedam, Dakinis, and Dharma protectors, an immeasurable entourage like clouds filling the sky. The principal deities' 3 places are in nature the 3 Vajras marked with Om, Ah, Hum, and Shri, from which radiate countless rays of light to the realms of the 10 directions. This invite the assemblies of wisdom deities.
Teneda dandanganzo dakche tunchinika damtsik semba sidanganzo semgi sosha chujireba. Tene dila inji minji jinlap kogoraba. Dila ishi sembagi ishi sembe sonum jenam churu se jendangayaki tsikdi dire dandanganzo dengo.
So we have brought to our mind the presence of ourselves as the deity and in front of oneself, the enlightened deities. And this is our visualization. It's called the Samaya entity or Samaya beings. And this needs to be consecrated by calling upon this visualization the blessing of the actual wisdom, primordial wisdom. So we invoke the wisdom entities, the primordial wisdom beings. And for that, there is the light radiating to invite that. And then there is a specific text for invitation to invite this blessing to come, which is the next step. So at the end, when we recite the Sanskrit version of this invitation with the Om Amitabha Vajra Samaya Zaza Adishaya Abhishaya, we play the bell and the damaru. So what the invitation says is Shri, from the expanse of the lotus pure land of great bliss in the West, protector Amitabha of discriminating wisdom, Buddhas and your offsprings, with intensely fervent faith and aspiration, I invite you, come quickly without delay. And then we, without holding the Vajra and bell, we join hands.
이시 semba기 lasunam ambite pevrunam shurunam segornadina.
So as we have invoked and invited them, now we ask them, like when someone comes to visit and says, please stay, please sit. So it's the request for to remain. So it's sort of request. Therefore, we join hands.
Pema da ve re ta je de pema da ve koma ada she ta je de pema da ve de e je zema to koroela Damze bada ereme ayadambaraju Nyamye dewa shembe chandalo Samaya titale atibo tate zao dila dribu mindu darwa. Tene,
This is
tene,
recited without playing the bell, even the Sanskrit part at the end. And it says, on a beautiful throne with a lotus and moon cushion, the principal wisdom deity and the surrounding assemblies of deities, please remain forever inseparable from the Damsikpa. I prostrate with the great bliss of equanimity. Damsikpa is the Samaya entity.
tene da Amitabha lazo sangma pe tsarwa, tene shuksane den nganzo ki choba, dagi tradishi jesha jo ki choba de, chi nang sawa choba de pyugo wer, da sabla da pyugo tere.
Now that they are sitting in front of oneself, they are our guests, we're going to present our offerings, the offerings which we have already prepared at the earlier stage of the ritual. We have said and consecrated the external, inner, and secret offerings. Now we're going to actually offer them to our guests. Start again.
Lame nam gae ga na je mera tora me ai je ma ya mera san je nyom jo de ai je re ma da tong sa lo de denji je ba me tene dambo chi cheba dila dene mudra chebora chi cheba ina dambo.
So these first 4 verses are for the external offerings, and they come as after reciting the Tibetan, then they come in Sanskrit, and along with the formula of in Sanskrit, we perform the mudras, which means the gesture, the symbolic gesture that represent this offering.
Om Benza Argam Pandam Pibe Dube Aloke Gende Nende Shabta Tati Zapuza Dribudan Damaru.
Now playing the bell and playing the damaru at the end of this mantra.
Dene da chi cheba tsarwa, da nangi cheba di pyuko wera. Nangi cheba di men raktor masto, da men raktor masto.
Okay. So the external offerings, if we read, it says outer or external offerings, sense goddesses fill the entire space. Inner offerings, I offer men, Rakta, and Dharma. Secret offering, the union between great bliss and the wisdom concept. For the purpose of ultimate offering, union of clarity and emptiness beyond intellect. So what we recited with the gesture, the mudra, that was the external offering, and now comes after the Shapta Pratisa Puja Ho, there comes the inner offering, which in the Sanskrit it says Mahapensa Amrita Rakta. So Amrita is for the nectar, and Rakta is, we usually don't translate, it's Rakta. So we offer now these inner offerings of Amrita and Rakta.
Tene dila mudra chebonda.
And then we still holding the Vajran, the bell, like Dupala is doing. We also perform a gesture, a mudra.
Ma benza amrinda radha garam gaye. Ma benza
3 times.
amrinda radha garam gaye. Ma benza amrinda radha garam kaye. Tene dila nangi cheba, tene chi nangda sangwe cheba di lakta matumindo mudra dharma dato set sangwe cheba rwa. Te da kangda sangwe cheba di tongba nye pigo yarwa. Dewa Chimbo, Rangita, Yamnen, Tomani, Dewa Chimbo, the Puga, Tiram, the Tabdan Sherab Nisum, the Dirita, Tongi Ningji, Kenyamlen Jesha, Tebuti, Tene, Dewa Chimbo, then offering to you.
So that was the inner offering, Amrita Rakta, the nectar and the Rakta. And the last one, the last bit, Mudra Dharmadhatu. Mudra is like Maha Mudra, it's the union. And it's the union of bliss and emptiness. It's the great realization. So here we offer the realization we have of the ultimate reality, the Dharmadhatu. And this is the secret, the innermost offering, which we present, and along with reciting that and offering our understanding or our realization, our state of contemplation of the great union, the ultimate realization, the great bliss of great union, we perform this mudra where we will cross the arms over our chest, holding the vajra and the bell. We recite only once.
Okay. Da Chuba Tsama Tsarswa, Chuba Gijela, Deba Pigor, Luans, Direta, Deba Liber, Tila Dorje Duch and Lapadenes and Second Dewood.
And for the next stage, still in front of our guest, after making all these offerings, external, inner, secret offerings, then we offer praise. And for the praise, normally we fold hands, but now we hold the vajra and the bell. Therefore, it's not really folding hands. We still hold the bell in the left hand, and with the right hand, as if it was about to fall, but we just, by holding the vajra, we make half of the joined hands. It's like Okay, so we have stopped in the middle of page 7a, second line after the second verse, and that was the praise. So you can put a mark. We end the praise playing the bell, and then we can put the bell and vajra on the table. There was no play of damaru anyway, and we keep our hands without damaru and bell. So let's read this praise in English, page 7, second line at the end. Shri Amitabha, you unify in you all the Buddhas, unchanging, red in color with a ruby radiance. Your unobstructed voice possesses the 60 qualities. Your unwavering mind is unelaborated grace bliss. I praise your body, which is the three kayas of great wisdom. Sugatas turn the wheel of Dharma, always look upon being with compassion. Guide all migrating beings on the perfect pure path. I pay homage and praise you, compassionate one, of skillful means. The translation reads as a request, but it's not a request, it's a praise to the Sugatas who turn the wheel. We praise that fact that they turn the wheel of Dharma, that they always look upon beings with compassion, and that they guide all migrating beings, it means all beings, on the perfectly pure path. And we praise that and we pay homage and praise you for that. It's not a request, it's a praise.
다 되네 다당 타이 도와 말레군 센도와 지 칙칙니 숨시 마도 칙두디 된다디 만종각 오마미 데와리 디디 삼로 땅고 디리도 오마미 데와리 소디기수도 다당 타이 도와 말레군 제와데네 쳬비 남다 대진신도 공부해 보면 시sha동 체데 디레 당한 쪽에서 소왔다면 오마 된다디 되란도와 다당 타이베 로와 리두기 심진 말리바 탐제 제와 디함세 대화체나 기야기 제와 디함 세디 제와 디 먼저 시도지디 남상도와 바르던도 마와 제와 디함 양나 제와 치마 바르도 세고 세베 줄마타 바르도 세고 되네 남덕 대신 신도 제네 장스 되네 오바메기 되네 대화쟁이 신감라 되네 계고도 말람전데 계네 양 참참 계산에 양 로망고라 산제 오바메기 셀 동거요 말했기도 가이서 제투거요 말했을 텐데 많이 봐 되네서 지와당 남성 공부 오바메기 셰드서 제일 투버쇼스 되네다 대화쟁이 막게 봐도 세딜라 세링 네메 대지된바 되네 공부 세바메다 에메쇼 세데다 정말 세링보 영화에 말람제 디리다디 오마미데와리 마슬랍디 된데네 삼로탄고 다데레.
So now we have Amitabha in front of ourselves, and with that perfect connection, because we offered offerings and praise, and now we can just communicate, and we are going to do that using the mantra, which is page 8 at the end of the first line, Om Ami Devashri, and we're going to recite as many times as possible, 100,000, tens of thousands, millions of this mantra, and we use the mantra as a way to connect with Amitabha and pray to Amitabha and request blessing from Amitabha. And this is reminded in the next section just before the mantra. So we just stopped with the praise, page 7a, second line, second verse. And then it says, myself and the infinitude of all beings, which means all sentient beings, myself included, and we are countless, infinite, limitless beings, all of us, in wherever we are in the samsara, pervading space. And then it says, as soon as this life is over, which means the moment we die, and that is when we die, there's a Bado teaching that explains the process of dying and then what happens next, just right after the death. So as soon as this life is over, it means right then after death, or in the next stage, which is the Bado. It's an intermediate stage before taking rebirth. But here it says there is no rebirth, no next stage, just there after this life, or in the Bardo, in this intermediate stage, stage or situation, may we be born in the pure land of great bliss. So, end of samsara, may we be born in Dewachen, And not only that, it says, and see the face of protector Amitabha, infinite light. Because we may be born, we may manage to have efficient aspiration and practice that leads us to be reborn in this pure land of great bliss, but not be in front of Amitabha. And this may last for many, many years that we are there, but not really in touch directly with Amitabha. So here we pray not only when this life ends, may I be reborn, may we all be reborn in Dewachen, but not only that, also see the face, which means be right there in front of the Buddha infinite light, Amitabha. But we don't want to die right now, so we add that for now, as while I am alive, we are alive, may we have a long life without illness and happy. So that's just a long and happy life. And in this life, which we wish to be long, we don't actually want to go right now, may we be inseparable from the protector Amitabha. That's the aspect of infinite light that bestows long life, longevity, and even immortality. So we also pray for this connection with Amitabha. And then we recite the mantra in the mode of a prayer.
Mandara kabla samutangurda de hawasanda.
So when we pray, when we recite the mantra Om Amitabha Shri, we have to think of the commentary says we have to make this request. May I be born in Dewachen and see Amitabha. So we're going to recite this prayer that precedes the mantra 3 times, and this is a supplication. So we fold hands and we recite 3 times.
English.
In English together. Myself and the infinitude of all beings, as soon as this life is over, may we be reborn in the pure land of great bliss and see the face of protector Amitabha. May we have a long life without illness and be happy. May we be inseparable from the protector Amitabha.
Tene da lekha ngoma de omami dewa ridi cha tong chi bum ju kha tse sangdu sa lekha ngoma diri da manjo da mandara ta diri ba.
And then for the sadhana of Amitabha in the Pure Land, the recitation is where we spend the more time. So we can recite, as it says, those you accumulate, which means recite again and again, 100,000, a million, 10 million, 100 million mantras. So we recite as much as we can.
Di pecha dinangla tene ningala mami deware korugaya weze choga dine kecha kami dewa tene danda di samla tayre da dangtayi simje ma chewa dine di samla tayre dewa mantara dine di matami dewa pecha nangla
Kira dukana di pecha di karere kira delchi chi yare be di karere. Kira la pecha chi yare.
Yoma pecha yoma di nangdo omami deware la ngak di changdi tene shen nangsing ningala ngak gom kholo khol cheba dende kecha shigimi dewa only dadang tayi dowa mali kun chewa dene di samla tangye changgo da mayi go mami dewa tere pena
So
dine
here
nyembe changni boom saya chewa tongchur nguye nya milam drinks di mato mi dewa te tato di shin shibu
So in this text, before the mantra and after the mantra, there is no reference or instruction or allusion to some special visualization with light going forth from our hearts and to the heart of Amitabha, or the light of Amitabha coming down to ourselves, and the mantra circling, turning around in our heart, and the 6 syllables. This is not mentioned here. The emphasis is on this prayer state of praying to be inseparable from Amitabha and from Amitabha when we leave this life, when the time to depart comes, and always be in touch and see the face of Amitabha, be reborn. So the focus is on that, and there is no specific instruction on a visualization.
tene lama khashigi ngak madongwa ngola tun shidane tun dangbo de chibola tengwala chinlap chigida omur zira mane tawa dane omur nishu sakchi jane tengwala puja pechana la mindu dane luksu do
Also, many masters always tell that before we engage in a recitation of mantra, so we use a mala, a rosary, and the rosary needs to be consecrated. So it's not compulsory, but it's a tradition and must be for good reasons. And before you accumulate hundreds or thousands of mantra, you first consecrate. You first take your rosary and perform a little preliminary preparation of the rosary itself.
teneda ngak omami dewa ri sedi kandichire sena pe chilap chimbo omami dewa ri di sanje thamje mikse ne sanje yoba migi ku sung tugi chilap thamje omami dewa ri le yoraba tene ku di karre sedi om sedi sanje yoba migi ku je ami dewa sedi sanje yoba migi sungi chilap She said, Sanjay Bamiki took it in hand. Tenere, Chirtang Maxamala. Tene young Om Chipola, Kusung Tugichinam Yore, Segar. The counter, Dilla, Tiringi Dilla, Om de Care Sena, Sanjay Pameda, Sanjay Tamjiki Kugichinam, the Oms. Tene Amit said the Care Sidi, Amit said the Ganlagi, Amit Sena. Paktumebas, Sammeba, Namgadanyambas, Peredo, Paktumebas, Amit Sedi. Tene Dewa Sedi, Tene Ve Slavida Ve, Tene da Bögel Jona Ve Pakme Seateredo, Sanskiri Labdi, Paktumebagi Ve, Sida France Kenasian Wesera, Paktumebagi Ve Sedi, Tene Sanja Amitabha ki. Tene chilap, tene we pautu meba sedi, we digi, tene toa riju semjela chaptu baka we digi tene semjen tamjigi tikwa dan tiba tamje taal tsawa, semjen tamje tene dewa chenla ke tungba, tse ringbo nena tamje dila tene nang tungme diridwa, ami dewa se diridwa. Ami dewa seti paktu meba, dewa ne 이시지 회 박두메 바스 근데 시니 상제 탐지기 투기 사번 내려도 시디 투 카디나 시디 투르서 엄마미 되어서 늦어 침부르도
So when we recite the mantra, it's also good to know what we are saying. So the mantra is a Sanskrit formula or mantra or expression. And when we recite the mantra of the Buddha, we should always consider that it encapsulates the blessing of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It's the blessing of enlightenment, body, speech, and mind. So the first letter Om can be considered as including the blessing of body, speech, and mind of all the Buddhas, as the Buddha Amitabha in this practice, as the union of all the Buddhas. So it really represents enlightenment, entire cosmic universal enlightenment. And or you can consider that it depends on the teachings and traditions that Om stands for the body. And then Ami Deva stands for the enlightened speech. And Shri stands for the enlightened mind. So we have the body of all the Buddhas in Om, the blessing and the energy of all the Buddhas in the letter Oms. And then in the syllables, Ami Deva, all the speech blessing and energy of all enlightened ones embodied in Amitabha speech, and Shri as the heart or the mind. It's the same heart and mind, and here enlightened mind of all the Buddhas in the letter Shri. Or as I said, everything is already there in the letter Om. So there is, in this mantra, there is the blessing of all the Buddhas, all the enlightened ones, body, speech, and mind. And why does it take this special form and sound of Om Ami Dewa Shri? It's because Ami Dewa is our Sanskrit word. Amit in Sanskrit means immeasurable, immeasurable. We could say limitless, but it's more like it's beyond measure. Immeasurable, and Dewa is the light. So this is why they have translated this Amidewa in which is also Amitabha, which is translated in Tibetan. When they call Amitabha, they don't use the Amitabha expression. It's Sanskrit. They use it in Tibetan, and they call him. Him. Let's say it's a him. They call it Nawatai or Ugami, which means infinite light or infinite luminosity or limitless luminosity. It has different names. They always are translations of Amidewa, which means this measureless, immeasurable, or measureless light. And this light, Amitabha, what is this light? This is the light of primordial awareness, the light of wisdom. And this light is immeasurable, it's everywhere, and it reaches every being in the samsara. Each and every being is touched and suffused with this light of Amitabha, infinite light, which this light is a purifying light, enlightening, awakening light. So it purifies all the negativities, all the obscurations, all the sickness, all the obstacles, and illness, and hindrance, and negativity, and so on. It completely purifies and awakens beings. So this is the idea in this name, Amidewa or Amitabha, the infinite light. It's the light that goes and reaches all sentient beings. And so this is the light of primordial awareness. And it's also good to be aware of what is Amitabha and what that the name is there in the mantra as we recite this mantra as a request, and that it also includes the blessings of the body, speech, and mind of infinite light and all the Buddhas.
So then that this is also tila chamshaki shelaki tila tene ningung jela yang ti lama de
Oh, we have passed the time, so let's conclude and we'll resume after the break, the lunch break.
Bon appetit, enjoy meal.
Enjoy your meal.
Thank
and
you,
see
3 o'clock. Thank you.
At 2 o'clock British time. Bye for now.
Thank you.